Well, for more of really what has come out of the African National Congress, particularly the January 8th statement and the resolutions of the 55th Policy Conference as it wrapped up virtually in Bloemfontein, we are joined by political analyst Dr. Levy Ndou. Dr. Ndou, a good morning to you and thank you so much for giving us your time once again.
Good morning to you, Naledi. Good morning to the viewers at home. Thank you for having me.
I think we can talk about both, right? The resolutions coming out of the 55th National Conference, but at the same time, let's touch on what we heard from the president of the party yesterday, with the president talking firstly about our load shedding and energy issues, calling for the leadership of Eskom to tighten the organization's operations and also saying, making a pledge to add megawatts to the strained electricity grid. Are these words coming from the party and the president that are able to, in one way or another, reassure the public that we will get out of the dark soon?
Well, I think the president touched on the issues that most South Africans wanted to hear. And maybe let me start by saying that I've observed two broad areas in the speech by the president. The first part has been the identification of the challenges facing South Africa broadly. And number two has been the part that was dedicated to the activities of the party. When you look at the first point, or the first part of the speech, it's where he touched broadly on the issues affecting ordinary citizens. And that is where he had to talk about load shedding. And that is what everybody else in South Africa wanted to hear and wanted to get the plan from the ANC and the president. But the utterances that he made, I think those are not new utterances. Those are the utterances that have been made to Eskom. Those are the utterances that every South African citizen is actually saying to Eskom. My view is that the president should have actually gone a little bit further to indicate timeframes that has to be given in order for this challenge to be addressed, because most South Africans appear not to be knowing exactly what is actually happening at Eskom, the actual plans that are actually unfolding to ensure that we get out of load shedding and the energy crisis. Maybe he should have actually gone further and provided some details in terms of the timeframes.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of the 55th National Conference, I think one of the biggest talking points has been the party sticking to its step-aside rule, saying that for those involved, they will then review the process of where these individuals sit every 6 months. But they're holding steady to the step-aside rule. And then in the January 8th statement, you hear the president of the party saying, we view corruption as being counter-revolutionary. Any ANC member implicated or involved in corrupt activities will be dealt with and must be dealt with according to the ANC rules to enhance the integrity of the organization. I think it's a big thing to say, right? That the party is going to implement the step-aside rule and then have the January 8th statement saying, we do not tolerate corruption within our ranks. Do you expect that in 2023, though, we're going to see action behind those words?
Well, I think the ANC has actually started to deal with the step-aside rule. I know that there has been issues from different sectors within the ANC who had concerns in terms of the implementation of the step-aside rule. But it appears as if there is overwhelming support of the step-aside rule, and it will require very bold leadership to ensure that this is implemented and there is no turning back in terms of implementing the step-aside rule. Also, the step-aside rule came as a result of the perceptions that most South Africans would say that the ANC appears to be tolerant of corruption and corrupt individuals, and they wanted to ensure that something is seen to be done by the ANC as part of cleansing itself. And part of the renewal, in my view, in the ANC would be the strengthening of the fight against crime and corruption And if it has to succeed, it has to start within the ANC. And what is also encouraging is the fact that COSATU appears to be very much strong in support of the step-aside rule, because they have also realized that it has indeed a lot of negative implications on the ANC. And if the ANC want to remain relevant, if the ANC want to be trusted by the people, it has to ensure that they actually implement this resolution in order to cleanse itself and be seen to be a party that is very firm on the fight against corruption.
I want to talk a little bit about more of these key priorities that the ANC has set itself for 2023 coming out of the conference, and also as they set the tone yesterday. One of these priorities for the party has been to improve delivery of basic services and to maintain infrastructure. Now, here's the difficulty with that one is this is something that we know should be taking place. We've talked about it over and over again. But how does the ANC make sure that they're able to do that? Where are the fault lines, perhaps, that the party has not been able to look at?
The responsibility of the municipalities in South Africa is to provide basic services. We have been having municipalities from 1997 in South Africa, and the mandate has not changed, and it has always been clear: the provisioning of basic services to the people of South Africa. It was also not a very good picture that the ANC went to Mangaung that has very serious service delivery challenges. You need the ANC that must start saying that if there are wrong people deployed in certain positions of responsibilities, including Mangaung and other areas, they should actually act on their leaders so that the services will be provided to the people. You need the ANC that must take a firm stand and say, let us employ, as indicated by the president, they should employ people that are skilled, people that have got a proper knowledge of what they are supposed to be doing in society. We know that they've had challenges with deployment, and they don't seem to be prepared to move away from the deployment policy. But what, in my view, should happen is that the ANC should take a bold step and ensure that right people are employed in these positions in order to be able to provide services to the people.
And that's at local government level, I think. And I think that we've heard this complaint being raised a lot of the time about the skills of leadership at local government level having a great impact on access to basic services. I want to bring this in because we haven't touched on it. Another big one, as they talked about ending load shedding as a key priority, slashing SA unemployment. This is what many have called, the ticking time bomb of South Africa, the growing numbers of the unemployed, particularly in youth. How do they turn that around? Do you have optimism that the party is able to really forge a way forward to start creating opportunities?
It is one area that is constantly emphasized by the ANC. When I was listening to David Makura providing his report, they say that the ANC appears to be open in order to have other ideas that will come from other sectors of society in South Africa. It is up to the ANC to ensure that they create a very conducive environment for business to flourish in South Africa, which must then be able to attract jobs for young people. And of course, different strategies has to be developed out of these initiatives that Makura has actually spoken about. What we need to get now is the political will and different strategies to be developed to ensure that this goal has to be realized at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a critical one. It's a critical one because it's an emotive issue as well for many South Africans. Another key priority has been the role that the party sees itself playing on the global stage, right? Whether that be on the continent or as we see these major geopolitical shifts happening globally. What do you make of some of those goals and some of the wins that the party certainly has had where that is concerned? And then the work that it still has to do as a party that represents South Africa or leads South Africa on a global scale?
From 1994, South Africa has done very well, in my view, on matters relating to the region, Africa, and the world. South Africa has done very well in resolving conflicts in a number of countries in the region and in Africa broadly. And South Africa has played a role in a number of conventions and international treaties. And there is a lot of expectation from countries in the region, in Africa and elsewhere, for South Africa rather, to play a leading role on matters of the economy, on matters of peace and stability. And my view is that the South African government should continue to play that critical role in ensuring that indeed there is constant peace in the region and in Africa. And of course, that will be the mark that the South African government would have created a legacy for themselves to say, we don't only focus on South African issues, but we also have a role to play in the regional and African politics.
Yeah. Dr. Levy Ndou, always a pleasure speaking to you, and we really do appreciate the time that you do give us. He's a political analyst there, Dr. Levy Ndou.